All right, guys, welcome back.
We back.
Monday.
Happy Monday.
Monday after the Super Bowl.
It's mid-February.
Mahomes Monday, right?
Yo, sure, Mahomes Monday. That's a fact.
Happy Monday to the Kingdom.
Chiefs Kingdom. You know how we do. It's only right. Shout out to all of the loyal Kansas City supporters out there. Shout out to everybody, that knew.
Shout out to the Swifties.
She looked nervous for a little bit. Her and Ice Spice.
Shout out to
Ice.
Ryan was in the building.
Riot. Stop playing with him, Riot.
He was in the building.
He definitely was in the building. Front and center on CBS. Shout out to the whole Bronx.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Man, so much to talk about.
Great game.
For sure.
Amazing halftime.
Usher is a menace to society.
Big facts.
And he keeps doing it. We'll talk about that later on.
But they gave
a little blackout moment.
They had a disclaimer prior to, so I feel like it's only fair.
Hold the disclaimer.
It was like this performance may cause relationship problems. Please watch your girl. It was like a whole disclaimer before the performance started.
I'm saying, like he keeps doing it, but I get it, but not on my time. Shout out to Swiss. Shout out to
said y'all talking about the raw things, man. Shout out to Swiss.
That's what a gangster should say.
Shout out to Saudi Arabia at Saudi Bronx.
Yep. That wouldn't have happened in Saudi Arabia.
Nah, that wouldn't happen.
Off with their hand.
That might not have been the Saudi Bronx though.
Okay.
Man. Fellas, what you doing if somebody double hug your girl from the back?
Nah, he took it too far. He took it.
The double hug.
Put in the comments.
With the arms. No, it took it too far.
Nah, that's us, man. Don't leave your girl around me. True player for real.
Okay.
You never be mad at the guy. You got to be mad at the girl. But boy,
yeah.
Okay.
You signed up for this.
On to the next one.
It's all entertainment, man. They both married.
And that boy just got engaged. If I was Swiss, I'd be entertaining his Wednesday. Showtime.
Shout out.
All right. Even swap ain't no swindle.
The king of R&B, man. Put on the show.
Ooh.
Nah, for sure. This is big. New York City tomorrow.
Yes.
We're going to be at Carnegie Hall.
Yes.
One night only. Robert Smith, Ricky Rose Live Orchestra. We got the only black governor in America, Westmore, the governor of Maryland, and a bunch of other dope people. Shout out to Sus
One. What up?
You gonna be there? Okay.
Yeah, on the 1 and 2s.
That's home team.
Sus. So get your tickets, man. You got one day left to get your tuxedos and all that. Go to carnegiehall.com, get your tickets, man. That's something that we're looking forward to. So that's tomorrow night, and that's the vibe. That's the vibe for Tuesday.
Drink responsibly, please.
And the last thing I'll say is it's a big week for Earn Your Leisure. We have Tashonda Brown Duckett as a guest on tomorrow's episode. If you don't know who she is, she's the CEO and president of TIAA. TIAA is a wealth management firm that handles most of pension funds and retirement plans for teachers. They have over $1.2 trillion of assets under management.
That's what you put with a T. Don't get it confused.
1.2 trillion. One of the largest companies in the world.
Mm-hmm.
She's made history as the only black woman to have ever, at any point in time, been the CEO of a Fortune 100 company. One of 2 black women who are the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies.
Mm-hmm.
Just an extremely impressive person, extremely down to earth. And we've known her for a while, so we finally got a chance to interview her live at Morehouse. Shout out to the good folks at Morehouse.
Yeah.
Shout out to TIAA Cref.
Yep.
And that episode will drop tomorrow at 1 o'clock. So that's one of the ones, man. A lot of people was like, yo, thank you. I never heard of her before. Thank you for highlighting people that we've never heard of. We introduced a lot of people to Don Peoples, even Robert Smith. I mean, a lot of people wasn't really too familiar with him. They might have heard his name with the Morehouse thing, but I think we opened up a lot of new eyes to him. Cheryl McKissick, people like that. So this is another person that, a lot of people may not have been familiar with, but Forbes listed her as one of the most powerful women in the world, the 3rd most powerful woman in finance. As I said, I'm not gonna kind of just keep going down her resume, but she's one of these people that you may not be familiar with because she's not like a celebrity or always in the press, doesn't talk too much, but she's one of the ones, man. If you're interested in finance and business and investing and corporate, climbing up the corporate ladder, then you should definitely be familiar with her story. For
You
sure.
1000% should be. I think even when we talk about her resume, which is unprecedented, the human being that she is also just equally as unprecedented. A lot of times we talk about gatekeepers in this space and across the board for our community, and this is the complete polar opposite of that. You're talking about somebody who has opened the doors for everyone, really, but definitely has poured into our community and definitely us. You know, the advice, the mentorship that she's just given because she took a liking to our mission has just been incredible. We are very, very privileged to call her a friend. So yeah, everybody should be familiar with her. Make sure that you take notes. It's one that I had to sit back after we finished it. Like, yo, did that just really happen?
Wow. Yeah.
She's incredible, man. And so yeah, we enjoyed it. So shout out to TIA again. Shout out to Wyclef too, who was part of that, who was over there with us. And Lola Brooke was part of that. So shout out to the whole team. It was a dope event, and she's a special person.
So that comes on tomorrow at 1. We about to say in?
No, is she the first Black woman to manage a trillion?
Yeah, probably.
I think so. Yeah. Like we can't downplay how big this moment is. Like, if you could put Oprah and Dolly on one that had a baby, this is her. Like, please tune in, take notes 3 times, please.
That's a fact. So so tomorrow 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Blackout. So shout out to everybody that was highly anticipating the premiere of Blackout last week. Like I said, we had to push it back, but we're gonna drop Blackout Wednesday. Valentine's Day after you're done with your shenanigans, 10 o'clock at night hour.
For all the lovers.
That's your relationship. That's what you should be doing for your relationship.
Blackout.
You'll learn a lot too, for sure.
Indeed.
And if you're single, you should definitely be watching Blackout. So 10 o'clock streaming, YouTube, myself, Ian. It's some topics, man. It's some topics.
Legendary.
Blackout season premiere, 10 o'clock. Meet us here on Wednesday at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And we got a lot to talk about. And the last thing is shout out to Indianapolis. We will be out there for the All-Star weekend.
Yes.
And we will be streaming the G League All-Star game. We have a team EYL.
Yep.
So shout out to the G League. And check it out.
What is that for the people who don't know?
Sunday morning.
Sunday, I think at 1 actually.
Sunday.
Early afternoon. Yeah. And the consensus is that we're the most fair team, which is understandable. We did a lot of homework going into the draft, and we expected nothing but victory, right? It's a little round robin 4 teams, and we expect to come out with the championship, and y'all be able to watch it live. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Sure.
See y'all this weekend.
Yes, sir. Ski. Ian, announcements?
Yeah, Stock Club call will be this Wednesday at 9 p.m. Central. If I made you money, please put yes in chat. Prices for Stock Club will be out tomorrow at 9 p.m. Central. So if you haven't got your prices yet, you get them tomorrow. I will be in Indianapolis for All-Star with the guys, supporting them. Shout out to Adam Silver. Shannon and Mike Epps, cut it out. Ease up.
I saw that.
Yeah. And then next Friday, I'll be doing a free meetup for Red Panda here in Houston. We're going to have like a little Red Panda weekend. So click the link in my bio, check out. Maybe we can put the flyer and all that in here too. But I think it was time for me to do a free meetup and bond with the people. So I'm pulling one of y'all moves out the hat trick, Meetup.
A free meetup play.
Free meetup.
He called Wendy Williams with a weight bench. He just gossiping and he's strong.
Gotta stop.
That's not nice. Shout out to Uncle.
So here's what we're gonna do, man. Nice. Let's talk about Apple. But we got a special surprise. So Apple released their Vision Pro, and it's been going crazy. And of course, we talk about Apple stock all the time, but
they're tired of us talking about it, Rashad.
This will be a first. Where we can actually do a product review of sorts. So we have the product. We have the product.
Gotta have the product.
Okay.
Let's give it a go.
Let's get the product going. Let's get it going.
You got to walk us through this situation while you're doing this.
All right. So obviously we here in almost like a virtual land in a sense, right? These are the Apple Vision Pro. Very light on the eyes, very light on the head. Pause. But what you can't see is that this adjustable strap, which I think was pretty creative. They have this kind of turn wheel that actually can tighten and loosen the strap. So I'm tightening it right now. Y'all can't see that. That in front of me, I'm just looking at the room. So right now I can see everybody here. I can see Shadi sitting next to me here. I see Ian's looking at me. And I'm just gonna put my passcode in real quick. And this is one of the things that my kids were struggling with earlier this week when we were playing around with it. It's that mind trick that, yes, we're so used to using our hands and, touching things to make things work for us. This is a mindset shift where you actually are using your eyes to change your environment, right? And so imagine just looking at something and now having the hand-eye coordination to say, that's what I want. And so my eyes are looking at numbers, and then you have to pinch, right? So it's just simply, and I'm going to move my hands so you guys can see it, but most times you can just keep your hands close to you. So I'm pitching numbers, I'm putting my code in, and then it opens up perfectly. Right. And so, again, once you open the screen, you're looking at your environment. And so you see people walking around the streets and you see them on the train and you're like, I wonder if they can see me. Yes, I can see the entire environment until I click the top button. And now it looks like my iPhone. Right. I have apps. I can scroll across. I'm looking at more apps. Right. They also have Apple TV, which can take you into a whole library of movies. But I think one of the most impressive things, and I had to call Shadi when I saw it, was this immersive component of the Apple Vision Pro. Inside of it, you're completely in a different world. And so you're looking at the environment that you're in. I went into the studio, and if you have the Vision Pro, you can understand what I'm talking about. I went into the studio with Alicia Keys. I know we were talking about her earlier, but this is one of the most innovative things I've ever seen, or you're actually in the studio watching her perform her records, actually doing like rehearsals for a concert. And when you look around the environment, you can see the engineers, you can see the drummers, you can see the guitarists, you can see the vocalists, and you can see her, and you're in the studio watching people take notes and watching her go about it. In my mind, I said, this is going to change the way people are going to view concerts going forward. This is it, right? We always thought about sporting events, like sit in front row, that's immersive, but imagine being in front row of any live event possible and being in your living room and being completely immersive. It's a game changer. That was the first thing I did. The next thing I did was, okay, let me see what this looks like when I go on the internet. Now, we talked about it last week when we said Netflix doesn't have an app yet and YouTube doesn't have an app yet. And I was like, that kind of sucks. But you can go on the internet, you can use Safari and go on YouTube, so you can watch that. Inside of it, there are a few apps. ESPN has an app. Disney Plus has an app. And people are like, well, why does Netflix have an app? Why does Netflix not have an app and Disney does have an app? Well, we were reporting early on when the Vision Pro was announced, who were the first streamers that they announced would be a partnership? It was Disney Plus. And so I'm sure somewhere in the contract, they were saying to themselves, Disney Plus has to have at least the first 90 days on the Vision Pro.
Got you. Okay.
Of the other streamers. So it makes sense why Disney Plus is there. But Disney has immersive things as well. I'm sure within the 90 to 120 days, Netflix will be on there and people will be able to stream and watch anything they want. So this is, imagine a computer on your face, right? But in a sense that it's like I control everything from a virtual standpoint. So it's almost like virtual computing. Here's the coolest thing though. As you're watching one program, you're allowed to now open other screens. And so in a computer, we have tabs. But on the Vision Pro, your tabs become like huge TV screens. And so the next thing I'm thinking to myself is like, yo, if I have a 56-inch TV screen, but I can make my Vision Pro up to 17 to 18 feet wide, what happens to TVs of the future, right? So I literally was watching SZA's concert on Saturday night, 17. It took up my entire living room wall. On my right side, I had the Warriors playing the Suns, and I'm watching that in about a 10-foot TV space. And then I was watching CNBC. I was reading some articles about HubSpot and Cloudflare, and we'll talk about that later, on my left side. And so now I have this dimensional space where I'm watching three things that are happening at the same time. I put down the Vision Pro and I said to myself, this potentially could be the greatest invention in the history of technology.
Wow.
I'm putting it up there with the original computers, the iPhone, and I'm putting Vision Pro. And the reason I'm saying that is because this is the first iteration of it. Will it get smarter? Will it get more sleek? Yes. A couple of the downfalls, it doesn't really have a power on or off button, or not one that I discovered yet. And so you kind of have to actually unplug this battery pack from you. which is another one of the drawbacks, right? In order to use this, you have to carry this battery pack around. Now, I bought 2 battery packs, so I have about 5 hours of battery time just in case it runs out. So why is it a drawback? Well, if I'm watching a movie, most movies are over 2 hours, right? And so if I have a movie, this is going to die on me. And so I thought buying the extra battery pack was dope. Another thing is that getting used to having visual stimulation be the reason why things move. And so my wife she was struggling all weekend trying to put the passcode in. Her eyes wouldn't move because my eyes have been set to the Vision Pro. But anytime a guest puts it on, it gets recalibrated. So this is, I mean, again, it blew me away. I'm gonna let him watch a couple of the immersive things so he can see it for himself. But yes, the price point is high. I get that, which is why I said future iterations of it, right? Because the price point will come down. It'll get sleeker. They'll figure out this battery thing. This is the wave of the future. Last thing. I went into education lab. I'm like, well, how would teachers use this? How could this look in a classroom? So I went into this solar system app, and literally you're outer space. And as you look around, you can see the entire solar system. But they have something unique where you can change the scales. And so you can change the rotation of each planet to mimic a day, 7 days, 1 month, a year. And then you can watch all the planets rotating around the sun, and you can literally move yourself up to each one and look at the dimensions of it. I'm thinking to myself, imagine what they can do from a history standpoint, what they can do from a history standpoint. Like, how does education look if these things become sleeker and they become more uniform for that realm of society? We already know what it's going to do in the live space. I'm telling you, it's going to change the game forever, but it also can change education, man. I think they've nailed it with this. The price point is too high, so I'm interested to see what the next iterations look like. One of the greatest Avengers I've ever seen.
So that was definitely, great breakdown.
Great breakdown
experience for sure. And I've been saying for a long time, I thought that this was going to be the future of sports, because it's like,
I look crazy like this.
No, you look cool. I look like jumping from Aspen.
I keep on all white.
Yeah. I felt like this was always going to be the future of sports, because I just feel like why pay $30,000 to sit courtside when you could pay whatever this thing costs, a couple $1,000, and then maybe $100 to actually feel like you're courtside, right? Like now you actually can feel like LeBron is like right next to you, right? And then you can actually talk trash to Kyrie in real time and stuff like that. And it's like the live action events is something that is amazing. Then musical aspect as well, concerts, to be able to see your favorite, musician perform. And you're like
work on their album. That'd be pretty cool.
I'm telling you.
Like if Kanye would have made like a monthly membership on Yeezy to see him build vultures, that would have been fire.
And you're in the studio. It's so crazy. Like I was watching as the engineer was fixing the guitarist. I think he was out of chord, and he came in while she was performing it, and he fixed it live. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. I'm trying to figure out where the camera's even placed to get some of these angles. It's that immersive.
Wow. Better than the Oculus?
Oh, by far. And I didn't do any gaming yet, so I know that's an aspect of it. I haven't done any gaming. I've done live sports. I did a concert. Like I said, I was reading, and I did some of the immersive experiences that Apple has put out. And I'm sure that's going to be the new wave of their content, right? It went from, yes, we have movies. Yes, we're doing 4K. The next iteration, 3D, the next iteration will be immersive, where everything you look, you're in the environment. And so that's the last thing I'll say about this. There's this woman who does a tightrope over a mountain range, right? And you're watching her do it. But when you look down, you're seeing what she's seeing, right? And so you're looking at the fall. You're looking around and you're saying, wait, she's about 3,000 feet in the air, right? You're like, wow, this is crazy. You can see the freckles on her face. I haven't experienced anything like it before.
How hard is it to actually learn how to use?
I think once you get an understanding or a grasp of moving your eyes to the environment, I think it becomes very easy. And so like my son who's 10, easy for him. My daughter, she's 12. I mean, I had to take it out of her room to bring it down here. My wife, she was struggling with it a little bit and got a little bit frustrated. So I understand people in the original starting of it, it can be a little frustrating. But once you get used to, hey, move your eyes, don't move your head as much. You don't have to move your arms. Just use your fingers, right? It's very fine-tuned in that manner. It becomes very simple. And you try to pause me, Ian? I saw that.
That's something to tell somebody on Wednesday.
Yeah, I can still see your body. You try to pause me.
Man. Yeah, baby, don't use your eyes. So you can use your eyes. Go ahead. To all the fellas, if you don't got a date on Wednesday, get you a Vision Pro. I'm sure Brittany Renner or somebody got an app.
Hey, that's a whole
on the trunk.
That's a whole nother immersive experience.
Oh, another. Hey.
So yeah, gaming, that'll be big for gaming also. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Sam Altman said that it's the second most impressive invention that Apple has ever came out with, second to the iPhone.
Second,
I can believe. I haven't tried it yet, but I can believe that. They've needed innovation for a long time. Going back to that Zuckerberg versus Tim Cook battle, I think they are taking this metaverse play away from them.
Well, he actually said the second most impressive technology.
He had it at number 2.
Yeah,
to the iPhone.
I can agree.
Damn, I had it at 3. So I'm right there.
What was the second one?
I had computer, right? First, computer, right?
Yeah.
The internet. Well, if we put internet computer together, that's 1. iPhone, and I'm gonna put this at number 3.
Yeah, and this gives them some life. I can't wait till they see what they do over the next year.
Yeah.
But the gaming part, like you said, is going to be huge. The Disney content. Now, if like Moana 2 was immersive and Spider-Man and all that, like if that becomes immersive,
can you imagine what Avatar's going to look like in an immersive environment?
That's crazy.
Right. And I didn't even get into taking the pictures yet because they're not pictures, they're live moments. All I have to do is look, and now I'm taking a live recording of what's happening in front of me. In addition to FaceTime, which is now a virtual space, they actually choreograph your face based on everything when you look into the sensors. And now when I call FaceTime, it'll be like an artificial, I would say an AR version of me talking to you. It's crazy, man. It's really crazy.
Rashad, you gonna get one?
It's gonna be. We got
sure.
The tutorial.
I gotta wait.
We gotta pull up an All-Star and get it.
I gotta wait for the third version. You know, I gotta wait for the Cartier glasses version.
You can't walk around with this.
That's what that's why, because the first cell phone was like a brick, right? Mm-hmm. And then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller and more efficient. So that's what's gonna happen. Like 5 years from now, this thing is gonna be like contact lenses, really. Yeah, but the glasses definitely gonna be like, down the line, it's gonna get smaller and smaller and smaller. Yeah.
Home run. It's a home run. Home run.
And Apple sponsored the Super Bowl.
50 million.
Great return on investment.
Yeah.
How many people watched?
I don't have the number yet, but I know Apple paid 50 million for the halftime show. It was interesting because when you looked at the CEOs that were in attendance, you had Elon there, and then you had Tim Cook. But I thought it was dope that he was there, but he was showing the Vision Pro to the celebrities who had come to Super Bowl.
Smart.
So I saw Shannon Sharp and I saw Ocho using the Vision Pro for the first time, and they had the same exact experience I had when I first saw it on. Like, wow, I've never seen anything like this. This is different. That's dope.
Yeah. A good book is it was an essay by Sarah Blakely of Spanx. She has an article about doing things that don't scale. So she used to walk into like Bloomingdale's and Nordstrom and sell every manager on the product. To see Tim Cook still be active and doing that at the world biggest business conference is amazing. And then as a result, you'll see a lot more influencers start to talk about it and use it. So I think that's a good business lesson. No matter how big you get, you still need to approach people and show them your product and how it works to be able to get even more market share. So kudos to Timmy Cook and Apple. I know y'all tired of me talking about Apple, but if I made you money, please put yes in chat. It work. It is working.
No, it's working.
So, all right. Well, we'll monitor.
Cartier, Rashad need a metaverse. He need a Apple Vision Cartier play.
Please,
Matty J.
They got to put the chips in the frame. That might mess up the frame, though.
Huh?
They got to put the chips in the frame.
No, it won't mess it up. It'll be invisible. You got to put the invisible because it's going to be tinted anyway. So
I'm talking about the actual frame. Like, where you going to put the computer aspect of it?
Well, what
because when Ray-Ban did it, the frame is a little bit thicker, so
for the chips to go in. Yeah.
They'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. But speaking about figuring it out, airline sector. Is the airline sector going to need a bailout?
I think so. When I was looking, if you look at ULCC, their last high was 5 years ago. JetBlue, their last high was 3 years ago. Southwest, their last high was 3 years ago. United Airlines, last high was in 2019. Delta, last high was in 2019. Some are doing okay or they're stable, but they haven't made new highs in 3 to 5 years. I know there have been attempts at mergers, and I normally don't like those in the airline space, but if the entire sector is doing bad and no money is going to go into them and outflows are from the hedge funds are considerably going out quarter over quarter, like what are they going to do? I think a part of the issue, of course, everyone wants flights for cheaper. Things cost more. Gas prices continue to fluctuate. But I don't think, given the issue that we've had with United Airlines, there's not enough money being poured back into the planes, and the experience is not the best. I've always hated this category to invest in long term, but I'm wondering, do they need a bailout to prevent some of these companies from going out of business? We've seen it in the small banking community. They have a lot of issues right now. And I'm just worried if they don't get a bailout or if some changes are not made, 2 or 3 of these will go out of business in the future. So keep your eye on that. But what do you guys think? Do they need a bailout, or should we just let them go out of business?
Let who go out of business?
Some of these airlines.
Like who?
JetBlue's underperforming. Alaska's underperforming. American Airlines is underperforming. Spirit.
You can't. I mean, you can't let every airline. Then how would you fly?
I agree. No, I'm not saying let all of them. Should we let some, or do they need money pumped into the sector to make the airlines more competitive?
It's tough, man. When you think about, especially people who travel, as you can see, right, the way we're traveling has changed. The amount of space that you're getting on these seats has changed, but the price is limited, right? And the prices.
Even with the Ghana, I was like, "What plane is this? Soul plane?"
Shout out to Delta. The space has gone down, but the prices have increased. Which, for the average family, you got to take that into account when you're talking about discretionary spending. How much money will you have to even travel? There are a lot of these airlines, but I think one of the things we need to look at is who's making the planes. Right. So when you talk about Alaska, why is Alaska trailing? Well, why are we seeing it decline? Well, that the incident that they had when a door flies off, that doesn't help the stock. But Boeing's making that plane, right? And so when we see Boeing get affected because of this is how it works. It's a trickle down effect. Who makes the plane?
Yep.
So the first is the company that gets affected, then the maker of the plane gets affected. And so since Boeing has struggled over the past 3 to 4 years and they haven't quite figured it out on the 737, the entire industry has taken
going to suffer.
It's going to take a hit, and it has suffered for a bit. And it goes back to one of your golden rules, that not investing in things that have an engine or a motor. And every time I see reports like this, it reminds me of why that's such a good rule if I'm beginning in investing, because some of these things are not in your control, right? How do you control that? Right. When they did the investigation of why the door flew off, they said that, a few of the screws weren't tightened. As a shareholder, these things are not in your control.
Yeah, and quick turnaround time on flight. They barely clean the planes properly. You can't do like a proper inspection if it's flying from LA to New York or LA to Newark. Like, I think, and Boeing has recovered some, but I mean, if we look at 2001, they went up a lot, then came back down in 2008 and 9, crashed in 2020. They haven't got back to those highs. So I think when I'm looking at like American exceptionalism, we'll talk about China later. There's a few industries that need to improve, and we can't put all of our weight in on technology, AI, chip manufacturing, but some of the industrial plays like this and infrastructure have to improve, and the entire sector of airlines is fucked up right now.
Right.
Like if you gave me $1 million to put into airlines, I couldn't tell you one that I would comfortably be able to invest in for a 2 or 3 year period that would give me a great return.
Yeah. Pre-pandemic, Boeing was trading over $400. At peaked at 422 in 2019. It has gotten above 200, but it's been sitting in that consolidation between 180 to around 220 for the past 2 to 3 years. And now it's on a downtrend right now after, some of the incidents that's been happening with the 737. So interesting to watch. But if I had to, Boeing is, when you talk about government contracting and something that's not going to go out of business.
Yeah.
That probably won't go out of business, right? When we're talking about the amount of money that the government can spend and them having contracts with them. But yeah, it's a tough space to dump money in for me personally.
Absolutely.
So
I would stay away from all airlines right now.
What's your theory again for people that just started watching?
Stay away from any company that has an engine as a main product. I know some people are going to say, what about Tesla? Tesla is really a technology play with a little bit of solar masquerading as an automotive company, because if so, they wouldn't have the current valuation that they do have. Because it's maybe 9 or 10 automotive companies that are outselling Tesla if you're looking at top line revenue. So if it's a cruise line, airline, automotive company, I won't invest in because the cost is too high and those assets depreciate too fast when they are taken off the lot.
Those assets, y'all. Assets.
Yep.
So,
I mean, if y'all can buy it if you want to for your personal life, but in the stock, leave it alone.
Yeah.
So let's talk about we have a guest that we're gonna have a conversation with, but before that, let's talk about the S&P 500 hit all-time high, and it's still running. So the number one question obviously is going to be: is it too late to invest in the S&P 500? And here's a fun fact for you guys, in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
So the S&P 500 is at an all-time high. We know Nvidia just keeps going. NASDAQ, QQQ, the stock market is going up, right? Since 1952, the market has never had a down year when an incumbent president is running for re-election.
What is incumbent?
That's somebody who's already in office, right? So it's never had a down year in almost 72 years. 72 years, the stock market has not had a down year when a president that is in office that's running for re-election is running during an election year.
Yeah.
And obviously Joe Biden is in office and he's running, at least now. He might drop out, who knows, but at least now he's still running. So, it's a couple theories on this, but in layman's terms, the White House has a lot of influence, right? As far as Treasury Department and different things of that nature. Why would you not want the economy to do well when you're up for re-election? So you use all the tools at your disposal to make sure that the economy is running well for the year that you it's like going to a job interview, right? Like you're going to make sure you get a haircut. You're going to make sure that everything is done correctly to put yourself in the best position possible. And let's not forget Jerome Powell, who is the chair of the Federal Reserve.
Yes.
And if you're not familiar, so for the people that say presidents have no power, that's not actually true. They don't have absolute power, but they have power. So
yeah,
who appoints the chair of the Federal Reserve? Civics question for anybody in the chat. Do you know?
Jeopardy time.
You guys know?
You're gonna educate us all right now.
The president of the United States.
Ding 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 ding.
Yep.
Jerome Powell theoretically could still work even if his boss gets fired, but probably not. I would have
Trump said he's out of there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So he's going. So it's just human nature, right? He's going to do. He wants to keep his job, I assume, right? So he's going to do his best job possible to make sure the economy is up and up, because it's probably his last days working if Trump gets elected. So there's a trickle down. So now you start to see that there's a domino effect here. It's not just one person loses a job. If Biden goes down, his whole administration goes, especially Trump. He's not keeping anybody. So there's
everybody going.
Yeah. And so there's a White House machine that pumps this economy, pumps the stock market during election years to make sure that the president has the best chance of winning. You as an investor should know that, because
it's key.
You should know if the stock market has it. Now, is it 100% guaranteed? No, anything can happen, but it's a high probability that
it doesn't hurt. Yeah, and I think what Powell has in his favor, even if Biden isn't reelected, which is unfortunate, is that you look at the track record, right? If you look at the market over the past 4 years, the Dow, the S&P went over 5,000 for the first time. NASDAQ was historic, right? The NASDAQ was very close. I'm sure it probably will at some point hit its all-time high. These numbers, the Dow went over 30,000 for the first time during this administration. So the numbers are there. The history shows that they've done a great job, that he's done a good job as a Fed chair, but sometimes good isn't great enough. So yeah, it's a
Brock party.
Sometimes good isn't.
You got to be elite. But if we look at it, we only had one bad year while he's been chair. Like 2022 was rough, but if we look at the rise of NVIDIA, AMD's resurgence, Meta, that's because of the policy. So it helps to know what the Treasury and Fed chair is going to do, to know the temperament, to allow you to see if they're going to allow the economy to grow. Because there's a bunch of ways he could have played the inflation angle. He could have dropped rates really fast, really aggressively. I think he did a good job of managing that ship in the middle of a storm. Yeah, like without that policy, we would not be here today.
He's been pretty adamant about getting it back down to 2%. And I mean, people were expecting going into the year that March would be the first Fed rate cut, but it didn't happen. But look, you still got June, you still got July, you still got all of the summer leading up to the election where you can cut a quarter, 0.5%. Yeah. I mean, you got these tools at your discretion. So, I mean, that only helps. Got to use them, right? You start seeing inflation go down, CPI numbers, everything is indicating that this is a positive environment for the market. So, yeah, election years sometimes help.
So, speaking of politics and the government, we have a guest for a segment.
Yes.
We will bring up the esteemed guest. So, Rick Wade, I think. Can we bring him up?
Hey, how are you?
Right away.
Hey, how you doing, brother?
How you feeling, man?
Great. How are you?
Good. So I'll just give a quick background. So Rick Wade is the Senior Vice President of Strategic Alliances and Outreach at the United States Chamber of Commerce. So the Chamber of Commerce is the world's largest business organization. And I got familiar with the Chamber of Commerce when I was a financial advisor. And I used to always try to go to like Chamber of Commerce networking events, stuff like that. So I'll let him explain it. But if you're not familiar with the Chamber of Commerce and you're in business, then you're doing yourself a tremendous disservice. So we got introduced through a mutual friend, Kwame Anku, when we were in Ghana.
Yeah. I think we met in the lobby.
Well, right. Yeah. Right. Kwame made the introduction, right?
No, we just met in the lobby and we were talking and we like, I love what you guys do. I'm like, oh, really? And we just started having general conversations. Then we started having, hey, we have common people that, you know, we consider friends amongst us. And it was like, oh, every time we saw each other, it was like, okay, this is great. We need to figure out how we can do something together.
Yeah.
And now we're here, which is incredible.
So So, but before he was in government, he was in the private sector as well. So he has some perspective on both sides. But we spoke, and I just felt like it was a great resource that the public should be aware of as far as the chamber. What do they do? Different advantages that you could be taking place of, especially as a Black business owner. So it's a variety of different questions that we have. So first and foremost, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good to be here, brother. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So can you explain like what the Chamber of Commerce is, the mission of the Chamber of Commerce for people? Because I have a suspicion that a lot of people that are listening to this might not be familiar with the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah. You know, I think for us, the Chamber of Commerce is probably the best kept secret when it comes to doing business, whether it's domestically around the world. But think of us as the world's largest business organization representing the interests of most of American companies. We represent some 3 million companies. And if it's in the area of advocacy, which means lobbying, that's a fancy word to say lobbying in government affairs, but also business to business. Some people, think of state and local chambers. I mean, I'm in DC, there's a DC chamber. There's like 4,000 of them across America. And they're part of what we call a federation of state and local chambers. We have what's called the American Chambers of Commerce in 122 countries around the world. You know, you're right. We saw each other in Ghana. There's a U.S. Ghana American Chamber of Commerce. There's a U.S. India American Chamber of Commerce. So it really is a powerful business network in our ability to one, convene and therefore be able to affect policy. And that's extremely important because, you know, this is about us being at the table when policy is even a design. So we affect the environment in which business has to innovate, to operate, to succeed, and to grow. And so that's at the, whether it's working with members of Congress, working with the White House, at the state level, working with governors, or at the city level, working with the mayor and city council. So it's an extraordinary network and one that has been around 100 years. But I would argue that the chamber is probably one of the most powerful networking places if you want to do business and grow and expand. Being connected to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is critically important.
Yeah, so you talked about innovation, and one of the things we talk about here a lot is technology. And so obviously being at the Commerce, I wonder what type of things are being done or what type of initiatives can be done to help initiate people in our community to be in that sector, right? Because we talk about being a seat at the table, and we know if we're not at the table in technology, we're going to get left behind. And we always talk about the next 5 years being super important around being that. So what kind of things does the chamber do to make sure that these initiatives are going through?
Well, I mean, if you think of technology, well, it's not just a sector, but I mean, the whole economy, our whole world is tech enabled, I would argue. But, you know, but whether it's in tech and healthcare or health tech, or, you know, how we think about providing services through technology, whether it's education, we actually have a whole division. The way the chamber is organized is by issues and sector, if you will. We have the international vision. We actually have what's called CTEC, Chamber Technology Engagement Center. These are all the major companies, you know, major and mid-sized and small companies that are helping to shape policy around tech. So, you know, I don't know how we avoid not being a part of tech. I mean, you think of AI, you think of supply chains disruptions, which has now led to the biggest investment we've ever seen in chips and semiconductor industry. I mean, all of that really, when you think about e-commerce, all of that, I mean, it's all the common thread is tech. And, you know, and I would argue that if you're a Black-owned business, a small-owned business, or even a large-owned business, I mean, it's tech that creates that opportunity, connects us to various markets. I mean, you were talking earlier when we met in Ghana. I mean, one of the big areas that I'm focused on is how do we get more of us thinking about exporting? I mean, because the reality is, you know, while we, you know, love America and we're here, 95% of the world's consumers are outside of our borders. And the one commonality that we all have access to is technology. When we think about how we sell and market our products to those 95% of consumers who live all around the world. So, and those are kind of things that we lead and that we engage on. And it's just a valuable resource, the U.S. Chamber and its network.
Let's say I'm starting a business in 2024, what are like 3 to 5 tips you can give a new business owner for how they can use the platform to help grow their business this year?
Yeah, I think it's everything from, you know, one, you got to show up. I mean, and leveraging the network. I mean, when you think about 3 million companies, whether it's building those ties, which I think oftentimes we got to rethink, are we in the right rooms or not? And I think the chamber is that place that provides the right room for you to build the relationships that you're going to need. One, networking. Two, you think about the barrier that still is confront Black-owned businesses and minority business in general is access to capital. And so I think that's another one that we have to think strategically about. I mean, you guys know this because I've been checking you out from afar for several years. I mean, you know the data, whether it's the 1-2% of venture capital, whether it's, you know, the debt and lending from financial institutions that opens up and frees up more lending. And another area on capital side that I spent a lot of time when I was in the Obama administration at the U.S. Department of Commerce is what we call foreign direct investment. all of that foreign investment that comes into the United States. And so I think, one, that tip around networking. Two is understanding capital and the flow of capital and what that means for a startup or innovator or even an established business. You got to have access to capital. And then I think the third one, which is something that I'm deeply involved in, and we're going to launch a real innovative platform, hopefully in the first quarter, no later than the second quarter of this year, is connecting the corporate supply chains. Again, whether that's domestically or abroad. And how do we think about joint ventures? How do we think about getting access to all of those corporate supply chains? There's an organization that the National Minority Supply Development Council, which certifies minority business in America, as an example. I mean, there are 8 million minority-owned companies across the United States, of which about 2.6 million or more are Black-owned. And I mean, I was looking at some of the data in MSDC, and I believe they're certifying maybe about 15,000. So whether you're certified or not, you see the gap that exists when we think about engaging Black and minority-owned businesses. And so this platform that we're looking to launch, again, is designed to be an ecosystem, if you will, that brings buyers and suppliers, that drop knowledge and information all together through one seamless platform. So networking, access to capital, and getting connected to corporate supply chain, I think are three things that I focus on, I think are really critical to growing and expanding opportunities, particularly among Black-owned companies.
So you said that 95% of the customers of the world are outside of America. And obviously we met you in Ghana. And, you know, obviously you were on Obama's team, and now you're with the Chamber of Commerce. So you have a good perspective of businesses, Black businesses in America, right? What do you think are some of the issues that, let's talk about Black businesses specifically, when it comes to Black businesses? Because I have a theory that a lot of Black businesses start the wrong type of business, right? They're not scalable. They're not designed to reach international audience. They're more like mom and pop local situations where you just become an employee of just yourself, and that's difficult to scale. So looking at it from, you know, your view, what are some of the things that Black businesses are doing wrong, and how can they improve to compete in this global economy that we're in now?
But you know, you're right. I mean, the reality is most Black-owned businesses are small. I mean, 1, 2, 3 employees. They're in services, professional services, and that nature. You know, I think part of the problem is that we've not been exposed to some of this knowledge, and it is that exposure, I think, that is extremely important. I mean, again, you think about the international marketplace where 95% consumers are. Nobody ever taught me how to think about exporting and international trade. I mean, it was when after the day after inauguration of President Obama, you know, I was one of the architects of his first campaign. We didn't have a commerce secretary, and I was asked to go hold down the fort at the United States Department of Commerce. And probably within 3-4 months, the international department approached me as the highest ranking official at the Department of Commerce and says, you know, because you're the highest ranking political appointee from President Obama, you're going to have to lead this trade mission to India. Hell, I've never really been much out of the United States and continental. I'm not counting Bahamas and places like that. So that was my really first experience in understanding and going to Mumbai and Chennai and New Delhi and places like that, and understanding even the idea of being exposed to trade and business in another country. And since then, I've been totally immersed in it. But my point in saying that, you know, one of the barriers, or one of the ways we just have to rethink how we do business. That means how we start businesses, follow the money, follow the opportunities. And again, I think that, you know, foreign and exporting is a unique and new but valuable opportunity to our growth strategy. And, you know, and this, you know, one of the issues I got oftentimes with leaders, I mean, you know, whether it's, I mean, I've heard you all talk about our political leaders. I mean, folks don't come to our churches and communities talking about China and India and trade and exporting. And we have to change that and demand a conversation that brings more dialogue and knowledge and access and resources from all of these federal agencies. Good friend of mine, Rita Jo Lewis, who's the first Black woman chair of the Export-Import Bank. Most people in America don't even know what that is. And so one of the goals that I have is like bridging this knowledge gap with the information that exists and getting that information to our Black-owned enterprise across the country. It's just a knowledge gap as well, because we know we don't have a lack of businesses, but we do have a lack of high growth businesses that are competing in these industries that are not only shaping and changing America, but shaping and changing the world.
You spoke about the exposure piece, and I think that's vitally important, right? And the education comes with that, right? When you go to new places, you get to learn new things. So you spoke about India and China, but we met you in Africa. So I want to know your thoughts around the rising economies there, the workforce, the opportunities, right? When we're talking about import, export, we're talking about business development. What are your thoughts around Africa and maybe specifically in Ghana?
Listen, I think Africa, is the new economy of the world. We have a whole U.S. Africa business center at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce that strategically focuses on countries across the continent of Africa. And, whether it's Ghana or Rwanda or other parts of Africa, it's just rich with opportunity. I mean, you mentioned workforce. I think one of the most fascinating things that we need to recognize is the average age across the continent is only 19 years of age. And when you think about the aging workforce in America, the workforce is shrinking. It's becoming younger. The workforce in other countries around the world is shrinking. We have to think about Africa and these young people as being the future of work, not just across the continent, but around the world. So I just think Africa is just rich with opportunity. And you're right, even in Ghana. I mean, I spent a lot of time meeting with some of the local entrepreneurs there. And one of the things I've learned is, again, it's not a lack of innovators and entrepreneurs, but it's capital. And a small amount of capital that we can get into the hands of some of those young innovators and entrepreneurs in Ghana is just invaluable. So we're working on that part, and that whole construct or ecosystem that I talked about, and getting more Black-owned businesses connected to corporate supply chain, that actually extends across the diaspora. And that is one of my priorities as well. How can we get those entrepreneurs in the continent doing business across the diaspora? And so, I think Africa is the future. I really believe that. And the data is clear. And I think we have to lean in on America policy, but as well as drive more American investment into Africa and understand for us as entrepreneurs what the opportunities to export from Africa could mean to the United States and across the world.
If someone's inspired tonight watching you, what would be like the 5 best businesses to build in Ghana or on the continent of Africa for this year and this decade?
But I think it's just everything, man. Obviously the number one, if you look at, again, where investment, and that's one of the measures that I look at from the United States and other countries, energy. It's just huge. Africa has such a tremendous need for energy. I mean, you guys have been across the continent. I imagine it's not uncommon for you to lose power, at night, or and you cannot have business without sources of energy. So I think in energy, whether that's in solar or other types of energy, is wide open. I think in infrastructure is another area that's just rich with opportunity. I mean, you don't have to travel too far, from Accra, Ghana, or in other rural parts to know that, the roads and bridges and how we think of infrastructure to include the technology infrastructure is just wide open for investment and opportunity. Another area that, I think sometimes we sleep on is kind of demystifying the products that we can export from Africa, not only in terms of raw minerals and all of those kinds of things, but what about clothing? And I mean, I've been working with a sister from Africa on her shea butter exports. And it's just all kind of products like that. I laugh at myself because I got fascinated with this certain brand of cookie that's made in Africa that's more healthy than perhaps a lot of cookies. And I have a cookie addiction. But imagine if we can get a product like that in corporate supply chains. I don't know, it's not uncommon, obviously, when you're flying on an airplane, you always get that little Biscoff cookie. I'm trying to disrupt that and you get just small things like that we just don't think about. The products that we can import from the continent of Africa and Ghana in particular, because that's where we all met. I just think it's rich, but you have to rethink. And then the last thing I want to say about Africa, and we have a whole road show called Advancing with Africa. Some of this is about demystifying and debunking our perception of Africa. And so we have a whole effort to try to demystify and debunk a lot of perceptions that we have about the continent. But you've been there. I mean, you saw it firsthand. I mean, Africa's just rich with economic opportunity, and we're going to lean in on it.
Yeah, I want to add to that too. I just feel like, because that's a common question. I feel like the best thing that people can do is go to any country. Well, like let's say Ghana, go to Ghana just as a tourist and just make observations. I was just there, just making observations. As you said, the infrastructure, that's one of the things that I noticed. And a lot of times, most people will look at something as like, oh, the road is bad. But an entrepreneur look at it like that's an opportunity to start paving roads, right? Or like, they don't really have sidewalks. Okay, that's an opportunity for sidewalks. There's one thing that I noticed that I don't want to speak about publicly because I actually have an idea about this, but I just got to figure out. But I say that to say, I think that everybody should go if you're interested, because that's a question that you get, like, what business should I start? What business should I start? We met somebody that was telling us about a gentleman that started a porta potty business and made millions of dollars off of porta potties because there was no porta potties in Ghana at that time. And then all the construction sites, you need porta potties. Who's thinking about that, right? Like this hard. It would be hard for somebody to tell you go to Africa and start a porta potty business, but if you're in the business and you go there and you realize that there's no porta potties, then you might say, this is a business that's worth starting. But there's so many, I think, things that are needed, right? That it's really up to you to kind of figure out what you're passionate about, what you have knowledge about, what you have relationships about. But the best way, like you said, just to demystify the situation is to actually get on the ground, talk to the locals, take a trip, ride, see what's going on, be observant, and then you as an intelligent person can kind of make your own decision. But I want to ask you about the chamber for entrepreneurs. What is the onboarding process? Like, let's say, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, because the point of the Chamber of Commerce is it's a networking organization, right? Like you get to go to meetings and you get to meet other people in different areas. So let's say I'm in banking, right? I get to meet somebody who's in insurance. I get to meet somebody who's in investing. I get to meet. So now me as a that's why I used to go. Because as a financial advisor, these chamber, it was like local chambers, and they have meetings, and they only let like one person in per industry at that meeting at the local chamber level. So it'd be like one insurance guy, one investing guy, one CPA, and then you all kind of network with each other. Okay, I'll give you clients, you give me clients, opportunities and stuff like that. So what's the onboarding process for entrepreneurs to get into a chamber commerce, and what's best practices for them to get the best results out of the chamber?
Yeah, I mean, you raise a good point. I mean, I think there's a value if you're a local business to being connected to that local chamber. These are all three different levels of membership and engagement. Same with the state chamber. I mean, if you're really trying to do business statewide in a given state, I would suggest you really should be involved in the state chamber of commerce where you live. But if you really want to do business, think of us again as the national organization that's engaging corporations that's engaging opportunities abroad across the world, then the U.S. Chamber is a place that you should think about membership. And you can go to each of these. I mean, go to uschamber.com, and I think there's a link there that can direct you to one of our membership officers. And it's based on what your interests are. They'll talk with you. Are you interested in tech? Are you interested in exporting? Are you interested in cyber? They'll talk with you about your revenue and your growth strategy, and trying to make sure that your experience as a member is rewarding and beneficial for you as a member company. But again, I just can't emphasize the value of the ability to meet individuals, to meet companies, to meet global leaders. I'll give you an example of a brother whose name you will recognize, Isaiah Thomas, who's a very dear friend. I'm talking about the older Isaiah.
The younger one or the older one?
The older
The older
Zeke.
one.
You talking about Zeke?
Okay.
Come on, Zeke.
Yeah, but Zeke, man, people don't know about Zeke. I only use this as an example, but he has everything from Sherilyn Champagne. He's in real estate, but he's also doing a lot of business in the country of Colombia. And so I brought him in. He's a member of the chamber. He's a member of the International Division. He's now had a pleasure to meet with the president of Colombia and get to know all of those government officials and other private sector partners who are good for his business in Colombia. And so I get my point in saying that, and there are others, but I only use him as an example, is you have to think about what you want from these organizations. And there are more organizations that you can be have a membership in. But I think you need to think about what you want in return and the value of a membership and being in the chamber to help you reach your business goals.
And I just real quick, because I just want to hammer this point down, because so as a business owner, you're up against a lot to be successful. As a Black business owner, you're up against even more to be successful, right? So we talk about networking and relationships and stuff like that a lot, but people don't like what does that mean? How do I build relationships? How do I get in front of the right people? So this is something that, this is, like you said, there's other organizations, but the Chamber of Commerce is one organization as a business owner that you can actually join. And now you can actually go to different events. And like you said, you get what you put into it, right? So if you join and you're just a ghost member, you never do anything, then you're not going to get anything out of it. But if you're active and maybe you work your way up the ranks, right, and you meet this person, meet that person, you have to put yourself in positions to win. So this is something that's extremely beneficial for entrepreneurs to build their network and to meet people and to cultivate relationships, because ultimately that's going to get you into the next door. So I just wanted to kind of hammer that point home for people that might not fully understand the importance of it. That's the reason why an organization like the Chamber of Commerce is important, and why you as a business owner should be looking at any type of organization that you can to be active, to add value, to meet people, to, be a treasurer, whatever you can be to kind of move up the ranks, because ultimately that's only going to end up helping you.
That was a message.
Really quick. I know we talk all the time about giving value before all of you. Like if they were to join Chamber of Commerce this month, like what are some things they can do to actually be valuable to the members and the organization there? Because I think we hear it as a buzz phrase, but I don't know if many people have a framework to actually be helpful or valuable. What would you do if you were starting a new business and you joined? What would be like the first 3 things you would try to do to give the most value to the members there?
You mean to give a value to the business, the new member who's joining the chamber, or for them to give value to the U.S. Chamber? Because those are 2 different questions.
No, to give value to the chamber. Because I think you have to give first in order to be able to receive.
That's right. Listen, brother, one of the things that, in terms of giving value to the chamber, that we have to be smart and do more of is show up in these policy conversations. I mean, I testify on Capitol Hill all the time. And in fact, I'm there this week meeting with the Congressional Black Caucus. And we don't have enough of us who are showing up on the policy side of this work. Again, I would argue because, oftentimes, I'm looking for us to show up and trying to beg folks to come in and meet with the White House on some of these regulatory policies, on tax issues and things that shape how successful we are or not, on international trade agreements. Again, I don't know that we've been exposed to that, but we need more of us to show up in these rooms that literally, I watch it. I mean, I've done a lot. This has been my career. These rooms, whether it's on Capitol Hill or in your state legislatures, in committees, this is where you can be made or you can be broken, because this is where the policy is made. The regulations are advanced and promulgated that shape business success in America. And so we need more people to show up. That's how you can contribute in helping the chamber. And certainly the work that I do is being a part of that dialogue, taking time to understand the issues that affect your company on the political, the policy side, and also how that extends into the politics. Because our vote matters when we can align our vote with our economic challenges and our economic opportunities. I don't know that we ask our candidates and elected officials the right questions. And so even on the political side, which, again, I come from as well, we got to really advance an agenda and be a part of the agenda that supports the growth of Black businesses and our economic opportunity and closing this wealth gap. So we got to show up.
So I just want to stay right there for the regulation and policies, because, being a part of the commerce, the future of work is changing, right? And so if we look at the landscape, I wonder how you guys view it or how you're addressing the changes that are coming from technology. Are you viewing it as an opportunity, or is it more of a detriment to say, like, we need to be careful, need to have security around the future of work in regards to AI, generative AI, automation? How is the commerce seeing this?
Well, obviously, AI and technology and in terms of the future work is an extremely important issue to the private sector generally, and it's viewed more of an asset than a liability. But I think for African Americans in particular, and the research has proven, we have to be really concerned about the impact of AI and technology in displacing workers. What does that mean? That means we got to think about, do we have the skills to compete for these technology-driven jobs of the future? And that means rethinking even the curriculums from K through 12 to HBCUs and preparing our young workforce for these jobs that are going to be at a minimum automated or technology types of jobs. I don't know what won't be driven by technology. And one of the areas that I'm focused on that as you think about this, the millions of people without jobs and millions of jobs without people, is second chance hiring. I'm doing a lot around that. How do we get those who've been formerly incarcerated back into our workforce? So that's a big priority within my department at the Chamber, whether it's the policies or getting more companies to make commitments to give people a second or a third or a fourth chance in this case. Just because you had a conviction in a minor crime ought not prevent you from getting the job, especially in a time when, again, there are millions of jobs without people and millions of people without jobs. So workforce is just a big issue, but the technology piece is front and center. And we have to be a part of that in terms of making sure we have the skills to be able to compete for those jobs.
Rick, before we let you go, I wanted to ask a question about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then a lot of that is being reversed, or a lot of corporations are backing away from that, pulling money from Black initiatives. What's your thoughts on the current landscapes of that?
I think it's a great question. And one of the ways that I'm approaching this, and that we're at the Chamber, because you're right. I think sadly enough in America, D&I has become a political football. It's not just a moral imperative that we continue to invest and understand why diversity, equity, and inclusion matters, but there is truly a business case. You look at McKinsey and their research that companies that are more diverse at the executive team are more profitable. I'm not making that up. That's data. You look at the workforce challenges and the makeup of the workforce in 2050 and beyond. It's going to be majority minority. So the way I think about that, if we have skills gaps now among these populations, we need to invest in closing those skills gaps today so that they can compete in the future. You look at the data around supply diversity. The data is clear that minority suppliers are more innovative. They actually create a cost savings for companies. And so the way we lead this is around the business and economic case. I'm trying to stay out of the political and the politics. I get that, but we're trying to advance and continue to advance the business case. In fact, you may or may not be aware, but that's part of this meeting on this week with the Congressional Black Caucus that they sent a letter to all the S&P 500 companies wanting to know where are you in reaffirming your commitment to D&I. They're asking questions like, since George Floyd murder, some $300-400 billion companies pledged or announced. And, they're asking tough questions around accountability in this space. And so it is about how we can all work together to not only reaffirm, but make sure that this work continues, not for the sake of just being the right thing to do, but it's good for our economy. It's good for the workers in the workforce of the future. And when these companies can connect it to supply chains and connect it to access to capital, they also create jobs in the communities in which they exist. So it's all a win-win to me. And that's how we're leading. And that's my message that I preach across the country, that there's a business and economic case, and we can't afford to lose ground in that regard.
For those, my last question to you, Rick, is this: we spoke about China, obviously the importance of Africa. Are there other emerging markets that we should be keeping our eyes on for us the next 5 to 10 years?
Indeed.
Well, I just think the world is wide open in areas that perhaps oftentimes we don't think about. But I spent a lot of time in India. I talked about it earlier. I think even in economies that are having to be rebuilt, whether it's Ukraine, sadly enough, all of what is happening in and around the Middle East. I just think the world is an oyster when it comes to opportunities to do business. It's just that we've not been exposed as much as we should be. And that onus sometimes is on us as much as it is on organizations like the U.S. Chamber, which we're trying to do more of this, is to help us understand and expose our companies and our people to the world. But I do think, yes, I think the continent of Africa, I do think India, China, in spite of the geopolitical and other challenges that exist there. I mean, we have a relationship with China that is checkered and on any given day challenged, but it's interdependent. One country I would tell you that I've had a meeting with the ambassador and I was struck by that's so close to us that we don't think about is Canada, Mexico. I mean, I think all of these places are just right for doing business if we understand, and we got to think out the box as well. And engage and understand and go on these trade missions. And, as we were saying earlier, get exposed. And I think you got to see it to believe it. So go, take your time to go out to these countries. And the beauty of technology today, you can experience this stuff online if you do homework and do the research and understanding where to trade, what investments, what are the emerging economies, and then building the ties, which we can help you with through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. So can the U.S. Department of Commerce, that has what's called a Foreign Commercial Service Office Division. And their number one job, your own federal government agency, the U.S. Department of Commerce, is to help you get connected to markets around the world. So it's knowledge, it's being exposed, and connecting all of these dots. And that's one of my goals and what I enjoy most here at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce.
I appreciate it. My final question for you is for a person who may hear all of this information, they may feel overwhelmed and know not what to do next. Can you tell them like 2 or 3 things they should do starting tonight? Because what I don't want to happen is people be excited about the information and then don't know, apply it. For the entrepreneurs watching tonight, what are like 2 pieces of advice you would want them to start on tonight as soon as they're done watching?
Yeah, I think, the 2 things. One is, just learn. I mean, don't be overwhelmed. Start somewhere. Again, go to uschamber.com. And the information, the data, just at uschamber.com alone is just invaluable. You don't try to learn everything overnight, but just navigate, just go all across our platform and understand the issues. Understand some of the market information that we have at uschamber.com in our international division. And that's a good place to start. I think the second thing is, again, whether it's the U.S. Chamber of Commerce or the local or state chamber, get engaged in the right business organizations that can help you create the networks and the relationships that you need to get that loan, to get that capital, to get on that trade mission, to connect to that CEO or another Black-owned business. But those networks are invaluable. And so, again, whether that state chamber, the local chamber, or the U.S. chamber, think about your ability to invest in a membership. And when you invest in that membership, you got to show up. I mean, if you show up and are intentional in your strategy and what you want from it, it works. It really does work. So get that knowledge and information, uschamber.com, all other sources, read, learn, don't become overwhelmed, and then take that time to rethink where you put your time and resources in terms of your memberships. And these organizations are very effective as long as you do utilize them, you show up and take advantage and leverage these relationships.
Rick, I want to thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, brother.
Appreciate it. Any last words you would like to say before heading out?
No, listen, thank you for what you do. Again, I watch you from a distance. I'm really proud of everything you do, and to the extent there are partnerships that we can leverage and create with the U.S. Chamber and our domestic and global network. Count me in. I wear this hat proudly. I spent a lot of time in Tulsa. I do believe that we can create what used to be the Black Wall Streets all across America. I think being intentional and working together and walking together in this work is not just that we have to do it because we want to, but we have to do it out of necessity, and that's the stuff I'm interested in. So count me in how I can work with you and exploring ways in which we can work together.
No, for sure. We'll definitely be in touch. We'd love to do something with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce internationally or domestically or both. So definitely we'll be in touch. Once again, thank you for your time, brother. Appreciate it.
We appreciate having you, man. Thank you.
One thing we didn't talk about, I want to ask you guys, when you're meeting these people, how often are you following up with them? Because it's one thing to meet them, one thing for them to have interest, but on the back end, how consistently are you popping in to follow up?
Right away. I feel like as soon as we get a contact information, you get it for a reason, right? Like these people obviously have an interest in what you're doing. There might be an interest that's common thread. And so the first thing I do is send a text message to make sure that I got the number in, or if I got the email, we send it to Ab, or we want to make sure that within 24 hours, there's been a, hey, nice to meet you, pleasure to meet you. Thank you. Looking forward to creating. I always say I'm looking forward to creating history, because I feel like when we work together, that's exactly what we can make. And so right away. And most people don't do that. I had this conversation with Neil. Shout out to Neil Davis, and he was like, "How do y'all do it?" I'm just like, I actually picked that up from being around Shadi a lot. It was I would see how consistent he would be with follow up, and I watched him, get referrals and be consistent. And it was that fine balance between being consistent and being annoying. And so trying to figure that piece out is important. But within 24 hours of getting the contact information, we're doing that. Within a week of that, if we don't hear anything, then we follow up. And if not, we don't hear anything back, then you just leave it there. And eventually, I mean, this space it feels like it's a large space, but the people are, I mean, you see people everywhere. You start seeing the same people, and then you follow up in person. So when people ask why you guys everywhere, well, that's why, because we want to show up.
Helps everywhere. A lot.
It helps. It shows consistency. It shows that you're in the right spaces all the time, which I always preach. The follow up is important. So this was a random. We would just happen to be in the lobby in Ghana, and just had always talking to people. So having a conversation. I had no idea what Rick had done. And when we started speaking, he was like, "I already know what you guys are. We're trying to figure out how we can work together." Perfect. Have an opportunity. We can, you can speak to our audience within the next couple of weeks, and so that's how it came about. Just following up right away. Yeah.
Then the content helps a lot, right? To be consistent in the content, having good reputation, friend to friend, like all of it matters. All of it matters. I know a lot of times people think we're just out to be mixy, but it's work. Power of saying hi. Like I saw you in Ghana, I get clown for my Obama thing saying hi to everybody, but you don't know who knows who. You never know.
Yeah. And then what's beautiful is that a lot of times you'll be in a circle and the respect is so mutual, in a sense where he might be watching and you had no idea that there was somebody from the Defense Department that was also watching, and somebody in the White House is watching, and everybody's been watching some of the content, when you just thought, on Mondays you were showing up to talk to your audience that shows up every Monday. You never know who's watching. And so everybody that you meet is an opportunity to, number one, get information from, but also spread what you're doing. So yeah, we take every meeting, every time we get to meet people in person, it's an opportunity to expand the brand.
Yeah, for sure. I just feel like you got to be definitely aggressive when it comes to follow-ups. That's important. And having something to follow up on too. Don't just follow up and just like, hey, can we get coffee, or can I pick your brain? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Have some value add proposition that's beneficial. But I just want to talk about this Africa situation if we can, because we saw the NFL Super Bowl commercial yesterday for the Ghana initiative, the African initiative, really, to kind of just promote football on the continent, right? And a pipeline of sorts to cultivate talent. We saw, the NBA obviously, has taken that lead as far as cultivating talent in other parts of the world, mainly Europe and now Africa. You see a lot of African players coming. Before it was African players, but it was mostly just big men. But now you actually see skilled position guards and stuff like that happening, because they're actually, developing training facilities and different things of that nature on the continent, which is, having an impact on the skills of actually players, which is helping the game and helping the NBA as well. So the NFL, looking at that as an opportunity. So they announced that, and, he talked about, the continent of Africa having the youngest population, one of the only places in the world that's actually has a positive growth rate. A lot of places have negative growth rates. If you look at China, Japan, Europe, negative growth rates. Their population numbers are going down. China, Africa, pretty much the whole entire continent of Africa, their population is going up. Very young population, a lot of resources, a lot of opportunity for sure. But I want to play a video if we can.
Yes.
So, Mike, cue the video.
Then it's time for us to just put the imperial hat back on to say, we're going to govern those countries if you're incapable of governing yourselves, because enough is enough. We're done being invaded.
Because our own national security risk is at stake.
Exactly.
National security interests are at stake.
You can say that about pretty much all of Africa. They're incapable of governing themselves and benefiting their citizens, because the governments there are all about looting and pillaging and lining their pockets and going shopping in Paris instead of actually.
All right, hold on a second. Hold on. People on the left are going to watch this. They're going to say, wait a minute, Eric Prince is talking about being a colonialist again.
Absolutely. Yes.
So, all right. So what you just watched was a guy named Eric Prince, right? And so he's an American businessman, former Navy SEAL, which is like the most prestigious part of the military. But he also is the founder of Blackwater, a private military company, and had a variety of other things. He has a private equity firm. He does a variety of different things. He is the brother of the former Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos. He's her brother. So he's not just a random nut job. This is somebody who's actually moved up the ranks.
Incredibly powerful.
Extremely well-respected person, a lot of influence, a lot of relationships. It's not just some random guy on the internet that's just talking crazy. So you just saw the video where he openly called for the re-colonization of Africa.
In a public interview. So imagine what he's thinking.
And the guy gave him an opportunity. He was like, "Well, the left wing is going to say that you calling for." He's like, "No, I am calling for the recolonization of Africa." Okay, I have my views on this, but what's you guys' take on it?
My take is that at some point, I said this is going to be the year of truth, because there's not a lot of pushback politically, and we won't rise up fast enough. They don't care if they get caught doing mischievous things anymore. I think that the resources there are so incredibly valuable. And also, too, if Elon has been able to have whatever nefarious past with his dad and then himself, and then come here and build what he's built, if they have military prowess and political capital and favor, why even hide it? This is why I say we have to move faster. So when I began talking about international exposure and diversification internationally a couple of years ago, it's really key, because Africa is the gold mine, no pun intended. I think in this era, because people will not stand up to villains like this, there's no reason to hide what their plan is anymore. I think we have to stop being brainwashed, taking in so much media, focusing on bullshit that doesn't matter, so we can kind of thwart this kind of attack on the continent.
Yeah. I mean, Betsy DeVos is terrible as the Secretary of Education. I was in education when she was appointed, and her term was extremely short. To start there. But yeah, I mean, the moment of truth, the year of truth is a great way to summarize it. But I just feel like there's this bully behavior. It's like that invisible bully, right? Like, yeah, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, but what are you going to do about it? I think when I hear that, it's like, all right, well, at least they're just saying it out in the public. But on the flip side of it, like, what are we going to do? Are we going to turn our attention to listening to, like, hey, Lotto's beefing with Ice Spice? Or are we going to say, hey, listen to what the Department of Commerce is telling you about emerging markets, especially what can happen in Africa? Right?
We need to get Big Mama to team up with Department of Commerce.
Right? Like, what is the action that we're willing to take as a community, as a people, right? As part of that, the diaspora, like, it's there. And they're telling you, like, hey, this is our plan. This is what we're going to do. We've done it before. And you know what? The way it looks, you can't run it. So we need to come in and do it. I don't even want to call it a warning sign. I don't even want to call it a cause for alarm.
It's a declaration of war.
It's more of a declaration of this is what we're about to do. And again, it feels like it's the bully. It's the guy who's in the playground, like, yo, I'm going to take your snack, bro. And every day you come here for lunch, I'm going to take it again. Until you decide to, take a course of action. And I think we have to figure out what our course of action is. And hopefully it's not a small group or a small conglomerate of people, but it's a large mass of people that decide, like, all right, nah, we can't. We've seen this happen. We know how history has played out before. Here's our time. And when we talk about the next 5 to 10 years being important, this is part of that game plan as well.
Well, I think it's a few things to highlight here. So he pretty much, in a nutshell, talks about the corruption of African leaders and the dysfunction of a lot of African countries, and they can't get their act together. So, we're better off just ruling over them anyway. It speaks to a variety of different standpoints. It speaks from a white superiority standpoint of actually a lot of white people have never looked at any other group of people as regular human beings or on the same level of them. And this is why they have taken over the entire world, right? Whether it's America, whether it's South America, whether it's Australia, New Zealand, Africa, there has been no part of the world where Europeans have not conquered, raped, and pillaged. And you just don't change. People just don't change who they are because they are no longer in that position. Still think like that, right? Like, it's not like, okay, we've been thinking about this for 1,000 years and now we have withdrawn out of the country and now we just are completely different people. A lot of people still hold those same views. So that's one thing that I think people just have to just come to grips with, right? I think a lot of times, especially Black people, we have a situation where we want the best for people and we want to think that the best, and we always forget everything that's ever happened, and we want to just start new, and we want to just act like everybody's this is a new day. It's really not. It's the same day as it was before.
Yep.
Like,
shielded.
It might be shielded, it might be masked, but at the end, you are who you are in this world. So there are racist people in this world. That's not going to change. There are people that think that they are superior in this world. That's not going to change. No matter what, like, you might lose a war, but that doesn't necessarily change the way that you think in your brain. So I think that that's important for people to understand. It's especially important for African nations to understand because, African people, just like Black people in America, are very welcoming people, and they're very forgiving people as well. But that's to their detriment. It's happened before. So if you have to learn from history. You can't make the same mistakes. So be careful who you welcome into your country. Be careful who you accept money from. Be careful who you give your natural resources to, because history can repeat itself, right?
Yeah.
But also, I think that it's important for people to have a good understanding of history. So this is a common theme of like, well, why can't Africans get themselves together? It's the same thing of like, why can't Black people in America get themselves together? Well, you colonized them for 80 years, right? You raped and pillaged and literally killed, maimed, did all kinds of horrific psychological effects. after you withdraw from the country, you put them on economic sanctions, you ruin their economy purposely, right? Then anytime that a real leader comes to power, CIA and other government agencies from Europe have assassinated them, have imprisoned them, have actually propped up coups against them to put dictators in place that they have in their pocket. So there's a reason why there's dysfunction, right? Like, I just think like a lot of this, like, oh, like this dysfunction, why can't they get it together? Well, it's been a systematic program put in place for over a century to ensure instability, to ensure poverty, to ensure
corruption.
It doesn't happen by accident. So wherever there's corruption in the world, Europe and America has played a part in it and is continuing to play a part in it. So to this day, four countries just declared their independence from France and that they will have no longer dealings with France. Ivory Coast, a few other countries. Now, in 2024, they were still getting 70% of the resources now.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like,
you think the music contract's bad?
Yeah.
The venture capital on land move?
Perpetuity. They was telling us when we was in Ghana, these countries in Africa, when they got their independence from France, they had to sign deals that included 70% of all of their natural resources. France could get dirt cheap for perpetuity, forever. But look at Haiti. There's a reason why Haiti is the poorest country in the world. They're the only country that's ever had a successful slave rebellion, started their country, but they started their country by having to give reparations to France. When Napoleon put the ships at their shore, they really had no choice at that point in time. They said, okay, like we'll agree to this, but France has been raping Haiti ever since. Yeah. So, and then the president just gets killed in broad daylight 4 years ago. How does that happen? You don't think any other foreign entity has any play in this at all? Like, so I just think that it's one of these things that's a convenient ignorance when people just look at the situation for what it is and say like, damn, this is fucked up. But as a thinking person, you should always look at deeper and realize that there's reasons why it's fucked up.
This happens, yeah.
And it's the same thing in America. Like, there's reasons why people now, ultimately, yeah, you do have to take some accountability and you do have to rise above that because nobody's going to help you. But I think it's important to understand that if you put somebody in a grave, it's going to be hard for them to be flying in 5 years.
So Nigerian banker who just got killed in a helicopter crash this past weekend, nobody's talking about.
Yeah, I just saw that. So in that analogy, I don't even know, would white supremacy be the invisible bully, or is it not even the invisible bully? Right? Because there's undertones to it that most people won't know, but it's happening. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, the crazy part. Go ahead, Rashad.
Oh, I don't think it's. I think it could be. I think it's not so much invisible. Mm-hmm. I think some people would just tell you how they feel, and some people might kind of, be a little bit more intelligent about how they communicate. But it's never been. And Black people have to stop accepting white supremacy. When the Queen of England goes to Jamaica, she's treated like Haile Selassie returned. Now, whose fault is that? Right? And Shine told us this. He was like, look, there's nothing honorable about what the British Empire did in the Caribbean at all. So why do we still have such high regard for the royal family?
Education.
No, well, it's also being brainwashed.
That's what I said. It starts
programming,
especially in the Caribbean. When you talk about education, when they're in school, that's what they're learning, right? Like, this is who's in charge of the land. All hail to the Queen. Like, it meant something. When you talk about Jamaica, this is like 1964. It meant something to my grandmother. It meant something to my mother, who was like a young child, for the Queen to come, because they had been taught. Like, even when I remember my grandmother passed away, and this is like in the late 90s, there was just books and books about the royal family, and I'm like,
but what I'm saying,
it had been ingrained in them from a young age.
That comes from slavery. But what I'm saying is that at some point in time, as a Black person, you're a Black country, right? Now, it takes somebody to say, look, this is what we've been doing, but this ain't right, bro. well, this ain't right. Why are we celebrating our oppressors? They literally were slave owners.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing honorable about honoring the royal family in a country that enslaved you. So I get it that it's like the same with the slave masters. At some point in time, black people in America had to say, nah, we're not doing this. Like, no, like if that never happens, then it's insanity. There's no reason why any government in Africa should be wearing blonde wigs and calling each other lords. I don't care if they put that on you, but now you're free. You don't have to keep that tradition going. You're playing a part in your own mental slavery. Bob Marley told us that. Mm-hmm. Rest in peace to Bob Marley and free yourself from a mental emancipation. There's so many things mentally that you have to unravel, because it's like the physical aspect is one thing, but the mental aspects last way longer, and it's actually way more hurtful than what anybody can do physically.
But that's why it goes back to that. It's that same piece of this is the indoctrination, right? So if you've been indoctrinated, which can be
your
used
entire life,
then that's all you know, unless you have exposure, which sometimes it takes capital to even leave to have exposure. But if the doctrine changes, and I think like that's where we're on the cusp of, I think then viewpoints change, mindset changes, societies change. So it's important. Like, yeah, so when you bring up Bob Marley, that's important. He's trying to change the doctrine, right? What his message was changing the doctrine. I feel like what we're doing in this space is changing the doctrine, right? When Rick was just talking about we need to learn to unlearn, to relearn again. I think that's why this moment in history is so important.
Interesting part is he's one of the ones who will actually state how he feels, but there's a million others that feel the same way. I won't touch on the country over there, but that is prep for the invasion of Africa. That's why BRICS, to me, even though I called, China's stock market falling apart, BRICS is really important because it's not only a way to finish the United States as like the preeminent power, it's a way to invade Africa and take all the resources. I've said it before, Chinese are already there. They're already in Mexico. Like, people aren't talking about it. Now you're seeing other military groups, former business people. Like, if you think that BlackRock buying single family homes play with something, imagine if you can take a whole continent.
Yeah, I don't think people
leaders don't have resources to fight back.
And people don't really have a full concept of the size of the continent. I think we just think of Africa like, oh, it's that. No, the land size of it is just it's massive. And you're talking about 1.3 billion people that are living there, and he's saying the average age is 19. I mean, these are the type of scenarios. It was like, of course, when people have capital, they're going to come in and they're going to try to take advantage of it. And then that's the invisible part, is like, then you'll see policy change and you realize you're on the wrong side of it. And then discrimination happens. And what we saw here, redlining, these things happen.
In North Africa now, Egyptians won't even say that they're like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, monitor the situation. But
closely.
Ghana is the move. Like I told you, closely. I said, look, listen, I said semiconductors, and I was like, yo, just invest in it. You might not know exactly what company to invest in, but technology, artificial intelligence, that's the wave. Like that's gonna be the predominant factor that moves society for the next 15, 20 years. Like, this is what's happening. This QQQ thing is only gonna go up. SMH is going to go up. This is the wave, and it's not falling. Africa, specifically Ghana right now, is the wave. Remember I told you that. This is the wave.
Mikey, clip this up.
Yes, a fact. This is the wave. In 10 years, it's only going to be bigger. In 20 years, it's only going to be bigger. You have an opportunity now. I'm telling you.
Shout out to the NFL, but even when I saw the commercial, I said, damn, you're advertising the colonization. I'm gonna come bearing gifts like Santa Claus, but if I advertise me going there, I'm like, okay, well, it's front and center. Yeah, interesting. That, like, international exposure is key. For me, it was Mexico first. I think you need 4 cities. I'm a follower of Rashad's league. Ghana is really important. Got to get you 2 other ones. Keep investing for the long term, but as you build your knowledge base from investing, you'll see the same opportunity in other countries. You have to follow.
And he told you, he just told you Canada. Shout out to all our Toronto family.
Canada been on the radar.
My dog's tweet did, like, it's there. We intentionally have gone to these cities. London, we took you there. Toronto, we took you there. Accra, we brought you there. Very intentional.
Very.
Abu Dhabi. Well, before we leave, let's talk about the stocks.
Let alone
Cloudflare.
Hey,
what's it?
Hey, you know,
you made a hell of a call. So I have to ask you, what did you see in the stock that made you pick it? And job well done on.
I appreciate you, brother. I recall us at the end of last year giving our stocks for 2024, and I said, look, there's one that is not on the radar, but when we think about the AI economy, the ecosystem of AI, yes, NVIDIA is important. Yes, AMD is important. We talked about ASML. These things are very important. TSM, very important. But there is an economy being built around artificial intelligence and AI, right? So generative AI, I'm sorry. When we talk about security, that's important, right?
Yep.
So if there's more apps being built, if there's more sites being built, and there's more automation in those sites and in these companies, they're going to need to be protected. CrowdStrike is something that we spoke about, but it kind of had taken off. And so I, start looking at the top companies in space, and from the data dogs. We talked about some of the CRMs with Salesforce and HubSpot. Cloudflare hit my radar, and so I started to dig a little bit deeper into it. I saw they had been trading sideways since the pandemic. They hit a high of $124 in April of 22. I said, okay, let's see what they're really about. Peeled it back. I said, okay, let me go do my AI research now, right? And I showed you in Chicago how I was using AI to actually do some of the research. And so there are plenty of analysts from plenty financial firms that give great advice. And I said, all right, well, great. I don't want to have to read 20 different analysts. How about I just take a PDF of the 20 and put it into AI and give me a summary and summarize it and tell me a price target where you think this thing is going, all right? And so it gave me that number. I looked at it. I looked at their financials. I said, you know what? It's been trading sideways. It hit a point where I'm like, it's gonna come out of the cycle now. And obviously, coming into earnings, all the signs have been pointing to it having a great return. Just so happens that they announced more partnerships in the security services, and the stock went up 20%. Now, does that happen every day? No, it doesn't happen every day. But that research started 4 months ago, right? So 4 months into leading up into a point, I'm like, all right, this is the key point right here. I like what they're doing. It's been trading sideways. All of my metrics had hit to say, all right, this is the time. We got into it. I actually did an options call on it. I think it went within 24 hours. It had gone up 70%. By the time earnings came and blew earnings, it was up 378%. And so we don't sneeze at these type of gains. I have a text message where I'm texting my brother. I said, look, I'm looking for 20 to 30% here. I think they're going to blow out earnings. So happens it went up, 12-fold on it. So this is the type of research that goes into it. This is the type of patience where we're saying that we're plugging at it, but we're not just spraying up the market, right? We're selectively finding spots inside of this ecosystem that is called AI. Told you about HubSpot in October of last year. It was at $410. It got up to $634. The stock. So imagine if you had an option. The stock went up almost over $200, and they're reporting their earnings on Wednesday. And from doing the research that I've done, I'm looking at the quarter. I said, look, they're going to have a positive earnings. And so that's important, right? Like, look at when they're reporting, look at when companies are reporting, look at their estimates. I use Estimize, I use Zacks.
I like Estimize.
I use
Zacks is good too.
Anything I can use. CNBC, I use a lot. Wall Street, anything I can use for research, I'm using it. E-Trade, I think they have tons of information in different types of things you can find. Charles Schwab, any place that there's information on, I'm using it and putting it in the research. And so, man, it was an impressive week last week, but these things happen with due diligence and research.
Shout out to those who say we are hoarding information. Not the black guy who made investing popular. He called Cloudflare HubSpot. We've talked about NVIDIA. If I miss Supermicro, my bad. But what are you going to do for the community, my brother?
But that's how people need to look at the market too, right? When we talk about the S&P and it hitting 5,000, yeah, well, what's been carrying that? Like, what's really been lifting that? Right? We talk about the Magnificent Seven, and I know people like Tesla shouldn't be there, but even if we put Eli Lilly inside there and took Tesla out, you're talking about 8 stocks that have really pushed the economy, right? And if the S&P is a synopsis of 500, some of these companies are going to have to start pulling their weight. And so everybody's looking for the home run. Should we be invested in NVIDIA now? Well, NVIDIA is over $720 per share.
Yeah.
I'm not saying when or when not to, but all right, well, there's other opportunities out there. There's plenty of opportunities, especially in the ecosystem.
Just go dig.
Yeah, the ecosystem of AI is not going anywhere, right? Like the fourth, we know the front runners, but what companies are going to benefit from having AI in the infrastructure of their business? I think the two that we named are great. I think Salesforce, when they report in a few weeks, I think people are going to be surprised with the type of quarter that they're going to have. So all these things are important when you're trying to invest in a company. Oh, last thing. Shout out to my DraftKings. I took a lot of heat for DraftKings. And today I'm going to stand up and say, thank you for the heat. I appreciate the heat. But
it made you better, right?
It has made me better. And over the past year, it's up 164%. 164%. And based on what the Super Bowl looked like, which is important, I think how many states legalized gambling? Maybe 10, 12 of them.
Yeah,
they set a record with $23 billion placed in bets for Super Bowl weekend. $23 billion.
That's insane, yo.
One event. And think about what that looks like for those 12 or 13 states. But what does that look like when you have 30 states? When it becomes every state, when you talk about sports betting. So Flutter, which is the parent company of FanDuel, we just saw what The Rock did and the announcement that they did to be traded here in America. But DraftKings too, man. Sports betting is something that has brought in a lot of profit, especially here in New York. And I think that's going to even be bigger. I think New York actually in December had more money brought into it than Vegas for the first time. So sports betting is something that's not going away. So these type of strategic placements in the market are important.
And they got LeBron as an ambassador, right?
The official ambassador of DraftKings. He said
helps a lot when LeBron James come in.
He said, "Wear your crown. You wear the crown."
Yeah, and I have a theory that if they don't have any massive losses over the next 3 or 4 years, the sports betting industry is going to have a chance to take on passive investing. Like I saw what PrizePicks did. They had a way you can wager that Pat Mahomes would get more than 50 yards. Easy win. Like if they come up with a safe bet every week or every month, the passive index industry may have a little bit of trouble. Because they will have found a way to give a higher return on a monthly basis than what most indexes will give on a yearly. And if you have a bunch of safe bets like that in DraftKings, FanDuel, PrizePicks, all does it. That's why I would say your competition is never ending. Your industry is elsewhere.
And it's a trickle-down economy in this sense. When people are, why they keep showing Taylor Swift, why they keep showing, and we kind of like spoke about it a little bit. You get a younger audience of people watching, but who's that audience, that younger audience? It's women, right? Like it's women. More women are now watching the game.
Who spend more and influence buying decisions.
Here's what DraftKings has found out. More women are now gambling on their app, right?
Really?
So they're going to keep showing them. They're going to try, right? The fact that the Chiefs won, and let's say like they go into next season and they're still dating, this just intensifies, right? Yeah. Now you're going to see it even more because it's like the younger audience is watching, that fan base is watching, more people are betting on the most. I mean, the coin toss you can bet. These prop bets are crazy. What's going to be Usher's first song? What song is he closing to? All these prop bets are being placed during the game. And so you have, even if you're a casual fan, there's money that you can make within seconds. Or lose. Gambling has considerable risk.
Please consult your advisor. The prop bet on when they get engaged is going to be crazy, though.
They got one out there for you?
No, I'm talking about Kelsey. Me?
Oh,
no. Not this year. Next. You never know.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll say that for Wednesday.
We'll see. Yeah, we can talk about it now if y'all want to. No, go ahead. But oh boy, quit criticizing. Do something for the community. Dig deeper in your bag how your girl wants you to. Leave me alone. I grabbed them pillows and put them up underneath the Wednesday. Leave me alone. If I made you money, please put us in chat. To get the pillow and push on the stomach play.
Damn.
These are just jokes written by 85 South. I mean, none of this, yo. Blackout every Wednesday.
Blackout.
Blackout. Yeah.
10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah.
Black Mamba.
That's a preview.
Yeah.
Yeah, 824 too. We shout out to Kobe and Gigi and everybody that was lost in tragedy. The statue was revealed on Thursday. So Black Mamba, that's why we got it here. Right. And shout out to Anthony Edwards, man. They sent them some kicks.
Shout out to Ant-Man.
Yeah, look.
Yeah.
So we can really see what's going on here, man. I'm be honest with you. I'm a sneaker guy. This is a very impressive first shoe. Adidas, I like what you did here. I think this is a very, very impressive first shoe. So the
first run,
shout out to Adidas for sending them over. Plenty of love for y'all. And the James Hardens, if somebody can get those to me, I would really appreciate it. The James Harden 8s, the black and white pair is
please.
super
size 13
sick.
to me.
I would appreciate that. Thank you, Adidas.
Shout out to Ant. Shout out to the whole.
Ant look like Baby Jordan, yo.
They said the closest.
He looking like
real. The mannerisms, right? Like the way he's moving through. Yeah, I see it. I don't want to say it, but I see what they're saying.
Shout out to Ant.
He's a dog.
He's a dog.
He's one of the ones. Before we leave, Sam Altman and OpenAI looking to raise $7 trillion. What's your thoughts?
Boy, want to be a dictator. Jesus Christ. Like, I thought I read the headline wrong. I'm like, okay, let me go research a few more times. But I know how important OpenAI is to the American economy. I know how important the AI space is, but I know he said at one point there's going to be a one-person multi-billion-dollar company. I don't know if he has plans for that himself, but I think this is a hell of an ask. This is like the GDP for a lot of countries. I don't know if we should have a limit on how much capital one company can raise, because that would essentially give them a monopoly. But this is the first time I heard a headline about raising capital that caused me to be concerned. I don't want to make it a race issue, but when we can't raise 1 or 2% to be able to raise $7 trillion, and I know he wants to deploy it into buying chips and making more things, but is there a limit that there should be on how much capital you can raise at one time for one company when you really already have an edge in that market anyway? And I love Sam. I love OpenAI.
Yeah.
But
here's the part. I mean, it sounds lofty, right? Like that's beyond lofty, raising $7 trillion. But is it possible?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the part that we got to it sounds like that's crazy.
No, it's very. And I could argue if Sam was Elon and he ran OpenAI and it did it so well, he probably could raise 20 trillion. If Sam had the fanfare that Elon did from 3 years ago with Kathy, he could have raised 20 trillion easily. Elon just didn't deliver. Sam's actually delivering on the product.
Yeah.
That's what makes it scary. Like, he could quietly get that.
Yeah.
And with the help of Microsoft, I'm like, now if I'm him as an entrepreneur, I'd be like, Ian, shut up. Don't ruin my move. I'm not mad. But this is a dictator super monopoly potential. Just a little concerned. Now, as an investor in Microsoft, do I like the idea? Of course, from that side, but it did give me a lot of concern of if he does raise the $7 trillion, what is the downside of it? And there could be a lot of it.
There's a lot of downside. What does that do to the valuation of Microsoft?
I mean,
right? We're talking now. What if they own? What do they own? 49%.
49% of it.
Yeah. So you're talking about they're on pace to be the first $4 trillion company by market cap.
Yep.
So,
well, he's not gonna raise $7 trillion. Right? I think you just put that number out there just to kind of get headlines, sensationalism. That's impossible. If Microsoft,
you think so?
Well, that's what I'm at. I don't think he gets 7. I think even if he says 7 and he gets to 3.
Oh, he's not gonna get 3. But I'm just saying, like, if you get 500 billion, right? A raise, like if you raise $500 billion, that values your company at 1 trillion. Because he can only raise 50%, 51%.
And what's the X on it?
Some of that, because of some of that equity. No, I'm saying if 50% of the company, let's just say that's what I'm saying. Like, let's say 25%, because he's going to keep some equity.
Yeah.
Let's say he raises 20. Let's say he has 25% where he's just giving up for the raise, and he raises $500 billion, right? Now that values your company at $2 trillion. You're one of the top 5. You're one of the top 3 companies in the history of the world.
Yeah, but his business case would be, I'm trying to give America, this is my pitch would be, I'm trying to keep America in the edge to supply chips and parts to the entire world. It's bigger than the damn U.S. defense budget, right? It's needed, and he's in favor. He may not get the whole 7, but even, like you said, if he raises 1.3 trillion, that gives him an edge that no one else can catch up to.
No.
Scary. Yeah, he wants to supply the world with semi chips. Like, it's not impossible. Improbable, yes, but even if he raises half or 2 trillion in a time where the world needs it and the entire hype cycle has materialized and ChatGPT is doing well, you need chips to be competitive. In America, if we're going to be honest, in terms of innovation and technology, we're way behind. We're operating on PlayStation 1 when Japan and China have 5.
Let's say he gets to the 1 trillion. Who do you think the biggest investor is?
UAE, no question. UAE. Well, 1 trillion won't move a needle. And I was talking to Stock Club about this. Like, okay, hypothetically, the company that no one is talking about that I'm worried about the most, Saudi Aramco. What if they raise $1 trillion?
Yeah, I was saying. I mean, Saudi has more money than the UAE by a long shot.
Yeah. So if Aramco puts that $1 trillion up, and then they get into business, and that will help Microsoft tremendously to have another territory to potentially dominate.
Yeah, Aramco's a $2 trillion. You thought right now,
and no one talked about it.
Yeah, number 3 in the world.
You thought that slap that Rock gave Cody made some noise. Hey, boy, people are going to be crying. The Satya Sam Altman Aramco move. Boy, but what do I know? Sam Altman, what's up, my boy?
I'm
on the show. You raised $3 trillion. Hey, I got a couple ideas for you. Right. Yep. Rashad, my Illuminati paperwork ain't came in. Can you call
Illuminati with my mind, soul, and my body? Secret society trying to keep the eye on me.
Let's do this really quick before we go. So I saw it in the notes. The Super Bowl ad you saw last night that had the biggest marketing lesson and what you took from it. What would y'all? I'm interested in hearing what y'all would say.
I think Beyonce stole the show.
The Verizon joint?
Yeah, absolutely. Then to launch the music after, because I know all the attention was on Taylor, but the Queen came and said, "Hey, no."
And Usher. Right.
But Beyonce, I think her ad was phenomenal, and she got paid for the ad. She got $30 million for the ad. Not bad. Launch a project, country project. Now she's going. Taylor went pop. Beyonce gonna go country for a little bit.
It's Act 2 of Renaissance. And I listened to the song. It's all right. It doesn't even sound like it's forced. I mean, she's from Texas. It has that flair to it. So it's Act 2 or Act 3 of Renaissance. What you got? What was yours?
No, Beyonce is good. I mean, it's like you said. I mean, it's a double, right? You get paid, then you also get to launch. You use that to launch on your own thing, so you're getting paid twice. The Kanye West commercial, I don't think it aired.
I never saw it.
National. I didn't see it.
He said he paid $7 million to put the. It just said DZ.com, and it was like
self-recorded
from his phone.
He put the commercial on his Instagram page.
Oh.
but I didn't see it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a bunch of regulations and policies you have to meet before even putting. It doesn't even matter if you have the money; they still have the right to say we're not putting it on.
But no, I thought Beyonce was definitely a good one for sure. The NFL was very impactful, obviously, with their Ghana initiative. That's taking over a whole continent in 30 seconds, and a couple others. I thought like the Arnold Schwarzenegger commercial was cool. I thought that the J-Lo commercial was cool.
I think that was the funniest.
It was a few.
Yeah.
I had, and I don't know if people saw it, but I think Google had one of those moments in the ad campaign industry because of their use case of AI. I don't know if y'all remember, it was a gentleman who was vision impaired.
Yep.
They showed a practical use of how AI would work, where it takes the picture and now it shows you the clarity. Yeah. So showing AI and the practical use case of it, I thought was brilliant. And it was just like this emotional journey that followed him throughout his life, where he couldn't really see, and all these moments to the moment where he's having a child and he couldn't see, but the clarity of the phone actually allowed him to see because he was vision impaired. It's like a new feature that they're adding on their Google phone. Having AI be the story of the year and the decade, and then showing the use case for it, I thought was a brilliant job on Google's part. Congrats to them on that.
Yeah. Shout out to all my creative directors and everybody in that industry.
And Homes.com. Shout out to Homes.com. We do the homework for you. I thought that was clever, and having my man Lil Wayne in it was dope too. Lil Wayne, you on the clock. Super Bowl's in New Orleans next year. You are on the clock, Jay.
That'll be fire.
Jay.
Make that happen.
Oh, Dwayne Carter. It is in New Orleans, my brother.
He's not. It's a 0% chance that he's gonna have. He'll be part of it, like the Dr. Dre thing when he brought a bunch of people out.
I'm just saying, just have him part of it.
Inclusion.
Just have him part of it.
They gotta do a New Orleans gumbo. You gotta do a gumbo of New Orleans of different. You gotta have jazz. You gotta have Wayne. You gotta have different cultural people. Like that. That's what I would do if I was Jim. I would have like a whole second line with the trumpets, with the band. I would. You gotta incorporate all elements of New Orleans.
Cultural.
No limit. No limit too.
Yeah, he's important. He's very important. Nobody's bigger than Wayne. Nobody in the history of New Orleans.
Yeah,
Wayne, Jay.
That'd be fire.
That'd be fire. I don't know if he can't headline it, but he needs to be part of it. We'll see. Absolutely. We'll see what they do. Jay, you on the clock.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been real. Get your tickets to Carnegie Hall tomorrow. We will be with Robert Smith, Ricky Rose, Westmore, and a bunch of other people. And you have to wear a tuxedo if you're coming.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Blackout season premiere.
Wednesday.
Season premiere Valentine's Day. That's your gift. 10 o'clock. Be there. Popcorn ready.
Shotty gonna buy somebody a Chanel bag. So ladies, put your
raffle. The raffle.
Raffle.
Bag raffle.
Random person that's being selected in the chat.
Yes. we will have a form, fill out your information, and you'll be randomly selected.
That actually ain't a bad idea though, since I ain't giving out bags no more, you know what I mean?
That's a great idea. The data collection play.
Big facts.
Tashonda Brown Duckett, CEO of CREF, TIA CREF, 1.2 trillion under management. One of them ones live from Morehouse College. Tune in. It will be a life-changing experience for sure.
Big fact.
Yeah.
And
Stock Club call Wednesday at 9 p.m. Central. Then watch Blackout. I'll see you guys in Indianapolis, and then Red Panda meetup weekend, the 23rd to 25th here in Houston, Texas. Shout out to
happy birthday to Chuck. What's going on, my brother? Fee, what's going on? Happy birthday. Happy birthday, everybody that's celebrating this week. Love is love, man. Love y'all. Please.
Happy birthday, Chuck, man. Love.